General Blum was a retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General. He served as the 25th Chief of National Guard Bureau from 2003 to 2008. His last assignment before retiring was Deputy Commander of the United States Northcom, where he concurrently served as Vice Commander, the U.S. United States Element North American Aerospace Defense Command. Boy, that's a mouthful. Retired from the National Guard on May 21, 2010. Thanks for being with us today, sir.
Happy to do it.
So, what I like to do today is go over a little bit of your career, because I came down to Naples to see you, and we had a couple hours talking. Some of the things you told me were pretty remarkable, to include your time in Bosnia. Always with in my mind, Spetsnaz was an adversary big time. But when you were in Bosnia, you actually commanded some of them. So
I did.
we want to get into all that. But what I would first like to start off with is about your career path. What made you want to go into the military? And how did
An SF medic I went to high school with. I went to college after high school. He went into the Army, and he served in Vietnam, I think 2 tours. He was a combat medic, of course, cross-trained, a couple other things. And he mostly worked in the Central Highlands, and in a little bit of time with the Montagnards. And he came back home, and we got hooked up, and he started telling me about all the training. He said, "Steve, you need to come in. You're missing out. This is good stuff." So I was a college graduate and married, and I came home and said, I told my wife that I thought I was going to go and join. So, and of course, I got all kind of wonderful support from my family and her side of the family. Like,
hell no, you're not going.
are you crazy? Are you crazy? So I said, no, I'm not crazy. I want to try it. So I enlisted, and I didn't take advantage of the fact that I had any ROTC. We had 2 years of ROTC at Maryland, and then and I just enjoyed. I just joined as a private, and I joined right up at Company B-19 Special Forces, up in Towson, Maryland at the time. Later, they became part of the 20th Group, and that's when we got hooked up together. But I joined, went through the training, and had no intention of making a career of it. I really was going in for the adventure and what the experience I would get out of it. And do you remember Henry Lose, the
I do.
natural? He was born in Germany and after World War II and or during World War II, and he was a naturalized citizen and joined the army over in Germany. And he was my mentor. He was my team sergeant. And Henry Lose came up to me one day and he said, "Blum, you're never going to make it as an NCO. We're sending you to OCS." And I said, I said, "OCS, I'm not hanging around for a career." And he said, "No, I'm telling you, we need some good officers. We want you to go." So I went, and I
Good
found
choice.
one thing led to another. And so I come in as a private on the 8th of November, 1968, with a buddy of yours, Rich Christopher, who's now a retired sergeant major. Um, and he and I served together the whole time I was in SF. And so my first, from 68 to 85, I was in Special Forces assignments and jump status and continuously. And then in 1985, the Army created something called the Light Division, and they cadred it out with a lot of Rangers and Special Forces experienced guys. So I was made a battalion commander of the 29th Infantry Division, reactivated National Guard Division that landed at Omaha Beach on D-Day with the First Infantry Division and the Rangers, and of course was part of that great historic invasion. So I
I remember a training because I believe you reached back to your old company and asked for some support up in Western Maryland, and
I
we put
did.
together some training for you. And I think my portion of that was rope bridges.
Right.
And I remember you coming up there hard charging as ever, and showing you how everybody how to go across. I was talking about how to secure your gear on you, make sure nothing's in your pockets, so nothing falls out. You don't want anything dropping in the water. People will track you that way. Blah 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 blah. You went across fine, and I think the next guy went across, and I think money fell out of his pocket. He had
Yep.
some change in his pocket,
Change.
and uh, and you squared that away pretty quickly, as I recall. As I
Well,
recall.
one of my rules, one of my leadership rules is you don't walk by something that is wrong, because if you do, you just establish a new lower standard.
Well, I'll tell you
Because
what, that officer was scuba qualified at the end of that at the end of that correction period right there. I'll just
so
leave it at that, sir. I'll just
yeah,
leave it at that.
so one thing leads to another, and I had just a magnificent career in special ops, and then I I really enjoyed the light infantry piece with the 29th Division, and General Shinseki, who was I think the second or the third commander of S4 over in Bosnia, uh, was then the chief of staff of the army, and the 29th Infantry Division and the work we were doing there caught his attention, and he came to see me, and he said, "Steve, I would like to take the National Guard. Uh, uh, do you think a National Guard division could handle the mission in Bosnia?" And I said, "Of course it could. Of course it could." And he said, "How about you take your division over?" I said, "Perfect. Happy to do it." So that's kind of how, and of course he got a big blowback from the Army staff because, National Guard, they can't handle this stuff.
The
Frank,
politics of it, I guess.
oh, well, exactly. But what they miss out is when you bring in the Guard, you bring in America. And when you call up the Guard, you call up all of America. And a machine gunner in the National Guard may be an air conditioner repairman or a plumber or a preacher or a teacher. God knows what. He brings in civilian skills that the typical 18 or 20-year-old kid on 82nd Airborne has never seen, unless he's done it as a kid on a farm or something like that. But so in that stability operations, the Guard civilian skills probably are more valuable or equally as valuable, and absolutely complement and
Yeah.
complete. Um, they give you a much, much stronger package.
More
So
sophisticated package. I've
exactly,
been on both sides of that coin with the active and
yeah,
the guard
yeah,
side,
and
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 uh,
and and,
and
and
have
they're
seen
not
that.
and they're not constrained. Everything doesn't have to be a military provided logistic solution. They think outside the box. It's they think, what can I use to make this thing work? It's much more. It's just to me a magnificent. It brings America to the fight, plus all the discipline and training that the military gives you, but it brings in all of the genius of our form of government and our way of life.
Yeah, I believe so
So
too.
so they were I thought anyhow, we went over there, we did a superb job. So when I came back out of there, I figured I'd retire. No, they sent me out to a thing called U.S. Northern Command. After 9/11, the president
Hold
had,
on, sir. Hold on, sir. Tell me about a little bit about Bosnia, though.
yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about that, because
All
we
right,
had a
so
great conversation
we
when.
trained we trained for a little over a year to get ready to go, using our normal training pattern to get ready and focusing on the mission overseas, and then adding several weeks of extra training for key leaders and key people that had to have additional expertise. So when we went over there, we were superbly ready, and we were to go over there on September the 14th, 2001. But on September the 10th, 2001, I got called from the mobilization site at Fort Dix, New Jersey, where I had 5,700 National Guardsmen from 24 states assembled, ready to go overseas. And I was called down to Washington to a seminar that was being held just outside the Pentagon over near the Army Navy Club. And
Hmm.
they were, and it's right above the hill above the Pentagon.
I've eaten
And
in there. Yeah.
and we were being lectured. It was flag officers from the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, and the Marine Corps being lectured on asymmetric warfare, this new warfare that we would be facing in the future. Well, while Dr. David Chu, the guy who's given us the presentation to all these military leaders from the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps, we get hit, except the first tower gets hit. So somebody comes in a room and says, a tower has just been hit in New York by an airplane. Well, all of the assembled military geniuses decided, must be a disgruntled employee. It could be a heart attack. It might be malfunction of an airplane. Nobody said it was an airliner at that
Right.
time. We figured it was a small private plane crash, and
Same
that
thing I thought.
happens. And that happens from time to time. People crashing into their offices. You know, I mean, because they're
Every day, at
disgruntled.
least once
Not
a
every
week.
not every day, but it happens. So we go back to talking about asymmetric warfare. Meanwhile, asymmetric warfare is being practiced on us, and
Right.
the nation's under attack, and we really were unaware of it. And nobody, zero people in Washington, D.C., in the chain of command really knew what the hell was going on or recognized what was going on at that point.
Right.
Second plane hits, can't fool us. We know
Right.
something's going on.
I'm
We,
smarter than
we
a
get,
circus dog,
we
right?
get,
We're smarter than a circus
we
dog.
get very suspicious when that second plane hit. So
It's funny that we can laugh now. At the time, we weren't laughing. Sure.
it really wasn't funny because by the time we self-realized what was going on, we heard the third hit
Right.
when the plane hit the Pentagon, and
Right.
we lost 187 people were killed that day, military and military civilians that work for the military in the Pentagon. Not to mention the people on the airplanes. I'm just talking about the people in the building. And
Right.
that plane, it looked like an explosion, guy. There was no way to tell it was an airplane unless you saw the plane go into the building because it was just giant plumes of black smoke, which you knew were fuel. It wasn't explosive smoke. It wasn't gray. It was black. You could tell it had it was a petroleum base to it and fire. And it was horrific. So I got evacuated over to the Readiness Center because they executed the evacuation plan for all key leadership. People went to Site R, Camp David, all the designated spots outside of DC because they really expected more to come,
More.
and they really had no idea what it was. And so I get sent over to the Readiness Center and scrambled the air ambulances, medevac out of Maryland and Virginia because they'd be the closest and fastest to respond, and sent in two companies of MPs out of the Maryland Guard, which ended up staying there and protecting the Pentagon for several weeks, if not months, until they
Wow.
got things in order. Then I went up to Fort Dix, which was an eerie ride because there was nobody on the road but ambulances and police cars. There was no civilian traffic on I-95, and we got there quite quick. We had, one of the little blue lights you stick on, and
Right.
my security guys loved that. It's because now,
Right. They have to work their way through traffic.
yeah, didn't
Right.
one in traffic,
Right.
just very, very unique. You'd see 27, 30 ambulances and convoys coming from everywhere. Kentucky, West Virginia, the whole country was responding, because of what was going on up in New York. So I figured I got 5,700 troops all assembled, live ammunition, food, rations, CPOGs, chemical protective overgarments, because we didn't know what we were going to go into. I didn't know if it was a nerve agent or how contaminated the area was or anything. And I figured we're definitely not going to Bosnia. We're going to New York now. So now I've called my ADC, Chip Long, and I said, hey, I'm on the road. I'm coming up, get everybody lined up, make sure they're sufficient with fuel. and ammunition and food, so we're not slaving or becoming a burden on anybody, and double and triple up all the medical supplies you can get because we're going to need them. We're going to be doing a hell of a lot of evacuation and search and rescue and treatment, as well as security in the initial phase. So, and I called the Adjutant General of New York, and I said, I've got this force ready to move, and we can be there probably in about 45 minutes, depending on the transportation, whether it's trucks or buses or whatever, or dump trucks, whatever we're going to use to get into New York. And he said, "Don't come." He says, "I got 8,500 guardsmen on the street already." Already. Yeah. So
Wow.
how'd you do that? He said, "I didn't do anything. They just responded. I didn't have to
Wow.
call them.
The
I did.
Minuteman.
They didn't call.
They were the
Yeah.
Minutemen.
I'm telling you, that concept is alive and well and separates us from every other nation in the world. And when you talk about Katrina, I'll talk to you about how that happened again,
Yeah.
because that is the treasure of the National Guard. The National Guard is unlike any military force that we have. They're all magnificent. They're superbly trained. They're true patriots. But the Guard has a special spirit, this Minuteman spirit. When they're needed, they're there. They don't even wait to be called. 8,500 people,
Wow.
8,500 guardsmen on the street without a call up.
That's the first
Without a
thing that
call up.
came. Well, first thing that came to my mind when you said that was the Minuteman. That is the. I mean, it's still on that emblem, as I recall.
Hey,
Uh,
let me tell you,
that
buddy, I don't go anywhere without it. Stay right there. This is what it's all about right here.
oh, there it is. There it is.
This spirit is alive and well, and we will celebrate the 4th of July as long as the spirit stays alive and well. When it's gone, we're gone.
Yeah. And 8,500, that happened, and they showed up. They showed
Yeah,
up to.
yeah.
Wow.
They were already there. They're
Crazy.
self-deployed.
Hmm. And
Unbelievable.
probably organized and everything else.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow.
Absolutely. Fantastic. There's no country like America. So
No.
anyway, so I
True.
come in thinking in 68, I'm going to be in for a couple of years. 42 and a half years later, I retire.
Right. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? I ended up. I did my burst of three, and then got out and realized I missed it, and then ran into a friend who told me his brother was in a special forces unit in Maryland, and I went, no way, and he was like, yeah, really, it was Robbie Del Campo.
No
And
kidding.
so I hooked up with Robbie, and I said, Robbie, what's the word? He goes, yeah, we got one down, and he said, Guy, I don't think you know what we do, and I said, I know exactly what you do, and so I gave him my DD 214, and so I said, hey, okay,
Well, if it
we
was Del
we
Campo,
need
you
we
probably
need
didn't
you in
know
here.
what he was doing. Even Robbie didn't know what he was doing.
Right. So he brought me down, and 32 years later, I got out. I mean, I got three DD 214s out of it because I was confused and didn't know what I really
Yeah.
wanted to do. Didn't want to really grow up, I guess. But it was amazing. It was like I'll do a burst of one, and then Bobby Bates came over and kicked me in the foot and said, "Hey, you got to go in and re-enlist." And I said, "Well, all right, I'll do another burst of one." He goes, "Like hell, you'll do six. Get in there." And that was it. It was like downhill from there. Yeah.
Yeah. I first ran into Robbie Del Campo when he was in the Ranger unit in the Delaware Guard.
Hmm.
That's where we met.
Yep.
And
He's
then
a
then he
character.
formed then he formed his own team, his own SF team in Delaware, and basically said, "I'll bring a whole team down." So
Yep.
that's what happened. And
Yep.
they were mostly guys that came out of the Ranger Company, the LERP Company, and in Delaware.
And when that started to thin out, guys from Vietnam, Joe Burke, uh, 10th Special Forces Group, Jimmy Joyce, Tom Morris was from the sixth. I think he was in the sixth, and I think he was in the third. Um, uh, Brad Needles was a bat guy, Ranger bat guy,
Hmm.
who got SF qualified. Joe Cole, who went on to do big and great things with on active duty. He was a
Right.
medic. Ended up going into the secret stuff. And Arnold O'Sullivan was a local kid that came on board. He ended up retiring a master sergeant. There was quite a few. I really I was kind of impressed with the talent. The Vietnam guys uh, were a talent, and the active duty SF guys. I learned a lot from them. Learned a lot from them. Yeah,
They were extraordinary. They
yeah,
still are. They
yeah.
still are. A lot of them are still contributing in the private sector to the cause.
Did I mention Joe Burke?
Yeah,
Okay, I just
yeah,
want to make sure because
yeah.
if I didn't mention him,
I ran into Joe Cole. He was uh, he was working basically um, counter cartel work and counter narcotics work when I was in Northcom as a chief of staff. And I got briefed on what was going on in there, and who comes in to brief me with this guy named Joe Cole. And we looked at each other and went, "Uh-oh."
so we cross
I said,
again.
"What are you up to, Joe?"
Yeah, I talked to him. I think the last time, well, not the last time, but I talked to him like I think it was like in '05 or '06, and I just got back from Iraq. I was over there with Blackwater, and Joe told me that he was over there with his unit, and he said I was in Baghdad at the time. I said, man, I wish I would have known. We could have hooked up. He said, well, I'm not supposed to be doing it. I said, yeah, I get it, I get it. But I said, look forward to seeing you again. Joe Burke had an 80th birthday um, not too long ago, and Cole came in, and I couldn't because I had other family stuff that I had tied up. But I'm going to catch up with him sooner or later and get to see him. So so you were in Bosnia, um, but and you're also heavily involved in Katrina.
Yeah, that
Now,
was later. That was later. In Bosnia, we went over to peacekeeping, and we it was remarkable. I couldn't believe it. I had a Polish brigade, a Nordic Polish brigade, mostly built around an armor brigade out of Turkey, and it was run by a guy named Hakan Dorelli. And I had a Tur- um, a, an- Turkish brigade, which was an armor brigade out of Turkey. It was Hakan Dorelli, excuse me. Frank Kochanowski was the Polish brigade. And then I had a Russian airborne brigade that had just come out of Chechnya and Spetsnaz outfit, and it was run by Sergei Prokoshev. And I'm
I
going,
find that very interesting.
this is
Really,
crazy. I mean, this was S410, which is October 2001 through the spring of 2002, and we were. We, I had a Russian airborne brigade under my command, which is an incredible arrangement. An incredible arrangement.
I wonder how
But
many other commanders can say that they commanded a Russian Spetsnaz unit.
well, the guys before me didn't because they got up and left and went to Kosovo without
I was gonna say, I don't
permission.
think any. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think. I think you're kind of unique with that.
It was pretty amazing, pretty amazing. And we did a couple of jumps with them that were were remarkable too. But they were they, they I'm not afraid if that's the best they have, we're in good shape. We
You're in
don't
good
have to,
shape.
we don't have to worry about those guys. And now it's not because they couldn't be, they're not great soldiers. That's not the point. They're
Right,
physically, they have courage and they're absolute, they'll run through a wall for you. But,
right,
but the fact is, our guys will go, why do we want to run through the wall when there's a door right
right.
here? And
When
they don't.
when you use that breaching charge.
They don't. They're going through the wall. That's it.
Right,
I was told to go through the wall. We're going through the wall.
You
But
know,
uh, but they're missing the secret sauce they're missing is there's no NCO corps. So
hmm,
all their colonels do basically what master sergeants and platoon sergeants do.
huh,
And they're not doing what the colonels are supposed to be doing in our army.
right.
And they don't do the sergeant's work, the senior non-com work very well. So it's it's chiefs and Indians and nothing in between. And what makes
Yeah.
us work so well are the NCO Corps. I mean, the NCO Corps is the magic catalyst that makes the American military what it is, and particularly in special ops. Who runs the operation is who knows the most about the operation. And it's not about rank, it's about knowledge and respect.
That's obviously a great formula that we have. I think another good barometer for measuring capabilities is Afghanistan. Is They were there for 8 years and left with their tail between their legs because they couldn't push the Taliban out, and we did it in 100 days, primarily with special operation guys and air power. And so I think that's a great barometer because we ran them into Pakistan. When they left Tora Bora, they went through that Khyber Pass and not to be seen again for a few more years, but eventually they found them. But I think that's a great barometer on how to measure the differences between it. But still, it's still unique. I mean, our immediate foe that we thought in special operations was Spetsnaz guys.
Oh yeah, so that you and I trained for years to go against them.
Right. And here you commanded them. I thought that was so interesting. Thought that was so interesting. So, do you have anything else you can share about Bosnia?
Well, we 9/11 changed Bosnia. For a year and a half, I practiced and rehearsed and prepared for that mission. And then on 9/11, it changed everything because the uh, the Bosnians that were hanging, which were mostly the Muslims, were hanging on to us, our legs, protect us, and the Serbs were confounded. They were confused. They were really frustrated by. They could not understand why we didn't take their side and why we were protecting the Muslims. And then the Croats very cleverly played both sides.
Right.
And they're the only organization I've ever seen in a civil war that switches sides depending on who's winning. Um, and they did that twice in their civil war that they had over there. But but then 9/11 happens, we deploy on 9/14, and when I come in the country, everybody is different than they had been all the trips that I'd made on my leader's recon, because the Serbs now are coming around, oh, let us unlock our compounds and we'll fight shoulder to shoulder with you. And the Bosnians, who were basically hiding behind our skirts, to protect them, were scared to death that we were going to have retribution on them based on what happened in New York and DC. So it really took about 2 months to get all the tigers back up on their stools in the cage.
Right.
Everybody, I say, hey guys, let's get everybody back the way they were. We're not changing the rules now.
Right.
But our mission did change because we not only did we have that S4 mission to do, we had a counterterrorism mission to do. And I'm proud to say that we picked up the first four Al Qaeda that were caught outside of Afghanistan. We caught in Bosnia. We
Huh.
didn't make
I
a
did not know that.
no, not we didn't make a big deal about it. But they were evacuated through Turkey and ended up at Guantanamo.
And probably interrogated and
Oh,
information.
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Wow, that's interesting stuff. I didn't know that. I'm sure that a lot of other people didn't know that either.
Well,
Um,
the best things we did there, nobody knew about,
right.
and probably will never know about.
Well, maybe that's for another episode, sir. I'll get you on another.
Well, then they'll all know.
I'll start off with a little bit of Wooford Reserve, and then we'll get into the real discussion. Okay? Could could you could you want let's shift fire here a little bit. You know, we're talking Oconus here with Bosnia. Let's talk about Conus with Katrina,
Yeah,
because Katrina in '05, I believe it was '05. I got back from I was in Baghdad, and I got home, and Blackwater contacted me again. Actually, it was Marty Strong that contacted me and said,
really.
"Hey, we'd like for you to go uh, down to New Orleans and run that operation for us." And I was like, I can't do it. I'm committed elsewhere right now. And but I followed some of it on the news, and wow, what a crazy thing that turned into. Could
Not
you
only
more
not only
insight
is
on
it
that?
not only is it a was it crazy, it's been documented um, inaccurately, grossly inaccurately. The real story, what went on, is very, very few people really understand or know about. Katrina was was really a critical event during the Bush administration. Um, on the 28th of August, at this point, I came back from Bosnia. I was sent out to U.S. Northern Command to stand up U.S. Northern Command. I was the first chief of staff, so I was sent out there. There was no staff. You had to build the staff. And it had to be a joint staff. It was a joint combatant command. It was set up. We wanted it bad, and we got it bad, to be honest with you.
Mm,
If I were to make one recommendation to the Secretary of War today, it would be that Northcom and Southcom would be one command, America's command.
mm,
And there's too many seams that
yeah,
really get in the way of what we need to do to defend our North America and our hemisphere. So it really should be a hemispheric command. It truly should be. Um, the fact that it's divided really works against us, and it sets up competition for resources from the Pentagon that really don't serve either one of the commands well. That's a lot. That's another discussion, but that's a takeaway that I got as the first chief of staff there. It was apparent even then. It was
huh,
even early on. It was apparent. I said, we're setting this up. We want this bad because the president wants a single button he can push. If America's attacked, this is the guys I'm coming to do the land, sea, air, cyber, space reaction to it, defense of our nation and North America in general. So in our AOR, we had Mexico, we had Canada, and we had in all of the territory of the United States. But so I go out there and I have that job, and I'm out there for about a year, and then Secretary Rumsfeld office calls me and says, "Can you come to DC on Tuesday morning?" I said, "Sure." So I come in, and they sent me in to see Secretary Rumsfeld, and I wasn't sure what he wanted to see me about. To be honest, I thought he maybe wanted to talk about Northcom or combining the commands or giving us additional resources. And he said, "Look," he said, "I'm looking for a chief of the National Guard Bureau." And could you do that? I've had guys that come out there and seen your work, and they've seen what you've done in Bosnia with the multinational force and what you did with the Guard over there. And I said, "Well, yeah, I could be the chief of the Guard, but it wouldn't be the Guard that is existing today. I need to change it." He said, "What do you mean you need to change it?" I said, "Well, the Guard now, you're wasting it. You don't appreciate it. You don't use it, so you don't understand it. You don't need to because you don't use it. You don't equip it right. They get short shrift on training and funding." And I said, "And you got this tremendous asset sitting there, and you send forces that really are less qualified for the missions that you want them to do than the Guard is. But because they're active duty, you figure they got to be better, and they're really not." And he said, well, what the heck would you do? I said, I'd transform the Guard from a strategic reserve that you only call for World War III and turn it into an operational part of the joint force because it's really got more firsthand knowledge of what's going on in every zip code of this nation than any of your active military forces. None of those guys live in where they're assigned.
So the integration that we're seeing today of guards guys integrating into active duty units was started with your tenure at the Guard
Yeah,
Bureau.
absolutely,
Excellent.
absolutely, absolutely. So I said we eliminated what was then called State Area Command, Starks, and we went to
Okay.
Joint Force Headquarters, took the Air Guard and Army Guard, put it together in a Joint Force Headquarters because it is a joint force. And they said, well, you need three. I said, well, how about the interagency? Nobody works interagency more than the National Guard. They do it every day. And I said, so, I mean, they understand how to build it bottoms up from every zip code unit to every county to every, state to every region. And then at the national, it's a seamless thing. So, and of course, so anyhow, I ended up being the chief of the National Guard Bureau. So on the 28th of August, I'm watching the weather and I'm seeing what's coming. Well, hurricane response is nothing new to anybody in the National Guard that lives from
Right.
the Atlantic coast to the Gulf Coast. They've all had pretty good experience, not good, but
Yeah,
extensive
they were very
experience,
experienced in it. Yeah.
extensive experience doing
Yeah.
search and rescue and hurricane response and recovery in their own state. And then of course we had interstate compacts
Yeah, that
because
partnership.
the states started working with each other. So I see what's coming. And Secretary Rumsfeld, God rest his soul, he's gone now, but he had one leadership flaw that I thought was that he micromanaged a little too much, a lot. And if you needed a bomb dog deployed to Iraq, he had to sign off on it. Well, to me, that's why you have service chiefs and other people that can make those kind of decisions for you, whether you can send that asset or not. But anyhow,
It's
so I
getting down the
knew
weeds a little bit, huh?
so I knew to get the Guard ready for Katrina, I couldn't do it through a federal effort. Even though as a federal officer, Title 10, working at the Pentagon, chief of the Bureau, I had to find a way to get the Guard ready for Katrina without having to ask permission from Rumsfeld. So I did it through State Act Title 32, where the Guard stays under the command and control of the state governor, but they can use their troops and they can use their equipment, and you can use some of the monies to pay for that effort, limited in Title
How did
32.
that work?
So
How did that work with multiple state units? I mean, were they combined coming under a unified command,
I'll,
or
I'll,
was
I'll tell you how simple it became.
okay?
On Labor Day weekend, I had a video teleconference with every state and territory. 54 adjutants general are on this VTC. And I had two butcher papers. One, and I took a magic marker and I wrote Louisiana, LA. And the other one I put Mississippi, because that's where the hurricane is hitting. It's going to be very destructive to the Gulf Port, Mississippi, and the Gulf of, then called the Gulf of Mexico, now called the Gulf of America. But that part of Mississippi was going to get devastated. Center of gravity, Gulfport, center of gravity in Louisiana was going to be New Orleans. And I said, okay, folks, this is what's going to happen. We got the most horrific storm we've ever had, damage wise, is projected to make landfall in these two places. I'm going to need communications, engineers, power generation, security forces for anti-looting and to maintain law and order and discipline, because the law enforcement agencies disintegrated in Louisiana and Mississippi. Okay. And people don't realize it was, and it hit 5 states total. Hit Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida.
Hmm.
So we had all of those states combined, and I had this butcher paper, and I put comms, transportation, high water vehicles, engineer equipment, bulldozers, graders, and that kind of thing. And I said, I'm going to call out the roll alphabetically. You tell me what you're going to send and where you're going to send it, because there's some politics involved. Some people would prefer to go to Mississippi rather than Louisiana. I said, as long as you can have your choice, I'll give you your choice until we can't. And then I'll have to make some hard calls. But if you want to take care of Benny Landreneau in Louisiana, your buddy down there, fine, or you want to take care of Jeb Bush, you want to go to Florida, we'll try to accommodate. But I need these things. So I had MPs, transportation, communication, engineers, medical, logistics, aviation, big time
Yeah,
aviation,
word
big
there.
time need helicopters for search and rescue. We knew that. So what we did, I said, here's the plan. We're going to keep it real simple. If you're coming by air, you're landing at this airport in Louisiana or this airport in Gulfport. Okay. And when I'm talking about C-130s, KC-135s, C-23s, anything that had wings on it that was a transport plane in the Air Guard or the Army Guard that was bringing troops from somewhere, that's where they were landing. Okay. 50,000 troops generated into those 2 states in 36 hours.
Wow.
So I say that again, 50,000 troops in less than 36 hours in those 2 states.
That's a
Based
massive
on,
movement.
I said, look, we're not even, so you took,
Alexander the Great couldn't have done that.
well, you had to keep it simple. Okay. And you can't make a discussion with 54 generals from the states.
Right.
They're all political animals. He's got to be, this is what we need. We don't, if you're not coming, fine. Just say nothing's coming. You know that every single state and territory of this nation sent somebody. Guam sent 4 lawyers, but they sent 4 lawyers to help with the contract law. Okay.
Huh.
Puerto Rico sent a brigade, but they said, we'll send them, but if it comes to Puerto Rico, are you going to come to help us? I said, absolutely. They said, fine, we'll send them. Not one, it was America's finest hour as far as I was concerned.
Huh.
Not one state refused. No one balked. Everyone did what they said they were going to do. Now listen to this. I flew down to Belle Chase in Louisiana. Belle Chase in Louisiana is an airport down there that had water on it, about 3 inches of water on it that finally subsided, luckily, so that the aprons and the runways were dry, okay? But they were full of debris. There's bulldozers and graders pushing tropical trees and debris and vegetation off of and mud off of these runways to create and taxiways. At one point at Belle Chase, I was on the ground and I watched this and I witnessed it. Every 5 minutes, an airplane from the Air National Guard took off or landed, engines running on load and offload, never
Hot
shut
load.
down, never shut down, never shut down, no electricity, no nav aids, no control tower, no communications. How did they do it? They talked to each other and they set up
The racetracks.
a racetrack, and one would come in and one would come out, and one would come in and one would come out. And that went on for almost a day and a half, continuous, to deliver 50,000 people in 36 hours. Okay.
Wow.
So it was the biggest, fastest military response to a natural disaster in the history of the world. And Katrina still today is the costliest in terms of dollars in damage of any natural disaster in our country. There's been
Right.
bigger natural disasters overseas, but in the United States, there's never been anything that big. It was
Right.
it's estimated $160 billion at 2005 dollars. That's not adjusted dollars. That's that money in that time. So we ended up and then we sent 170 helicopters, observation and cargo helicopters, Chinooks, Black Hawks, 58s, sent them down there to do search and rescue. What they were done, they were all at safe airfields outside of the hurricane zone. Once the hurricane cleared, they immediately went in search and rescue mode. Between the Coast Guard and the National Guard, we saved. I'm not talking about just move people. I'm talking about saved, credited as saves, 30,000 Americans.
Do you know
Third,
Paul Burke? You know Paul Burke?
yeah,
Colonel Burke told me just the other day that he was sent down there with an Apache. And I went, an Apache? He said, yeah, they got IR and we could find bodies.
they were used to spot them
Yeah,
they had the infrared. They
yeah,
fly over the houses to see if anybody was in there alive or heat source.
right,
Then we could send a plane with a lift in it.
right. It was a great operation. Um,
But
not to jump off that, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on Iran.
okay,
Uh, what are your thoughts today? What do you think led up to Operation Epic Fury?
about 47 years of bad behavior. And
Yeah,
I mean, if you're sitting in a high school and the kid in the back's kicking your chair, you don't
right,
immediately jump up and go crazy. But
right,
after 47 years of getting your chair kicked and worse, you had enough.
right.
It was inevitable. Should have been done long sooner.
I think between the bad behavior, I guess the rock and the hard spot would be the nuclear development as well.
Well, that's a culmination of the bad behavior. It's what they've been
Yeah,
trying to do since day one. But it was pretty obvious that even after the preemptive raid to try and neutralize or take that away, they were trying to reconstitute it, and then they were jerking around through the negotiations. I think this president just decided, you know what? Looking at all the things that I've got to do, this thing's I'm not leaving this to my successor. I'm going to solve this damn thing once and for all, and I think that's what he's doing. To be honest with you,
I
and
do too, and I think
I
that he's
really think,
playing.
you know what? I
I
don't
think
have
he's
any
playing
argument.
4D chess too in a world of mediocre checker
Oh,
players,
there's no question about it. He's got a grand strategy here. What
and
he's doing, what he's
I think that's going to come to fruition next month when he meets with Z
oh,
in China.
it's gonna give him huge leverage with Z. Are you
Absolutely.
kidding? Think about if Iran was the way it was and he meets with Z, or now when he meets with Z, he's basically got the fate of their oil, or at least some significant influence on whether they're going to get it and how much and where they're going to get it from and at
Well,
what cost
we're
and at
selling
what
it,
cost and what currency they're going to use to
right?
buy it. I mean, he is
Which would take out bricks, right?
and don't discount Venezuela. What he did with Venezuela was in preparation with me. It's all about China. It's not about Iran. It's all about the world balance of the West and the United States. Who's going to be the dominant power in the next 50 years? That's what Trump's all about. He's setting the chessboard that we have an opportunity to be successful because the way it was set before, we were going to get checkmated.
I think you're right. I appreciate you saying that. I think you're right. Um, sir, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Happy to
Um,
do it.
and
Happy to.
I'll give you a call shortly, and maybe we can get that round of golf in before you fly north.
All right, we'll do something that at least looks like golf.
Yeah, bad golf at the very best.
All right, thanks,
Thank
guy.
you so much. Thanks
Good to
again.
see you. Take care.
Good to see you too.